Welcome back. Once again, I'm your host, Carl Rising, and in this video we are going to talk about how to do a basic Candida cleanse. Why to do it, what to expect, and how to persevere. Now, it can be hard to change our diets. Sometimes we end up struggling because of either psychological habits or because of the symptoms of yeast die-off, which we'll be talking about briefly towards the end of the video. And usually, and this kind of Venn diagrams in with the psychological component, it's because our intestinal bacteria communicate chemically with our brain throughout the day by sending signals up the vagus nerve that stretches from the intestine through the stomach all the way up the spine to the brain, and regulates a lot of other functions as well. But one of the prime functions of the vagus nerve is chemical communication between the population of bacteria and the brain that commands the body, that brings the food to the mouth, down to them. When they're in balance, our cravings are in balance, and if we eat a balanced, proper diet, eventually we will get to a good balance. Now, the basics of a Candida cleanse are as follows. First of all, this is an exclusionary diet that has a couple of little additions to the diet for medicinal purposes. We'll expand on that in another video, other foods you can eat that really give you a leg up. But the most important thing is to stop feeding the Candida. Stop eating sugary, starchy things. Dairy has a lot of sugar in it. Even cheese, unless it's made from unpasteurized milk. And if you can get unpasteurized milk, straight unpasteurized milk, that's not so bad, because we have the bacteria present in the milk to break down all the proteins and sugars and fats that are in the milk, so it doesn't end up just being Candida food. Grains. Now remember, grains are something we've only been eating about 10 to 11,000 years. We invented grains. We burned large amounts of forest land to promote grass growth and cross-pollinated large seeding grasses to get grains. They're a food that belongs to the era of agriculture and human culture in cities, city-dwelling food. It is not an ancestral food proper, and the problem with having so many carbohydrates packed into one little grain is that's just going to feed mold, fungal organisms, that sort. And Candida is definitely in that family of organisms. You also want to avoid a lot of fruit. Sweeter fruits, especially, even oranges, most apples, the redder, the sweeter, the worse it is for battling Candida. The more sugar is going to be present in it. Starchy vegetables, and that's going to include a lot of potatoes and carrots because of their sugar content. Yams, not so bad. Sweet potatoes, not so bad, but your average white potato, oof, that's just prime Candida food. Peanuts and cashews, we think they're a health food, and for people who aren't in a yeast overgrowth state, and preferably especially people with blood type A, because those are the smaller foods that grow closer to the coast where the type A blood type stabilized. Yeah, that's pretty good for them. But Not so much with anyone with a candida overgrowth, and especially for, say, like a type O person who's, inland hunter-gatherer. The plants are a lot bigger. You're looking for leafy greens. Totally different biological setup. Processed foods that contain a lot of preservatives, that might have antibiotics added to them, might have other compounds that are going to throw off the pH of the digestive tract, and are definitely lacking in the good nutrition that will feed bacteria that we need in larger populations to crowd out candida. Soda, of course, or even too much sugar in your coffee. Oh, that's too much sugar in your coffee with candida. You're asking for IBS and diverticulitis. Oh, no. And colitis, special. Oh, no. And of course, nightshade vegetables, which of course this bridges back up a little bit into the starchy, but nightshade vegetables are going to be, as I've mentioned before, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. They all spike inflammation, which is going to make your intestinal tract a less inhabitable place for the aforementioned preferable bacteria. Now, you might be thinking after this, like, what am I going to eat? I can't have pizza. I can't have bread. What is this? I can't have my morning orange juice. Oh, what am I going to drink without soda in the afternoon? There's answers. There's alternatives. For every habit, we always want to replace the habit with a different, more beneficial habit. So what can we eat? Lean meat that doesn't have excessive fat that will break down into accessible sugar in the intestinal tract, or overfeed H. pylori in the stomach, which is going to promote a more alkaline stomach environment, which promotes candida in the small intestine, and which will promote it in the large intestine if we're not acidic enough to extract the minerals to make it alkaline. And by the time it gets to the large intestine, candida can migrate. No. But lean meats, especially lean beef for type A, lean beef for type O, fish and poultry for type A, that's pretty damn good for you. Fish, especially for the omega-3s and the very absorbable proteins in fish, for repairing the intestinal tract from any damage that's been done by candida overgrowth. Low sugar and high fiber berries, so no grapes, no strawberries, but blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries are going to be all right. They are lower in sugar, higher in antioxidants. Raspberries in particular have a very astringent quality to them, which helps with the pH of our digestive tract. Lemon, lime, green apples, if you're going to do fruit. Lemon and lime are very good for proper pH in the stomach and intestines, as well as the lymphatic system and the urinary. Cranberries also not so bad, but cranberries, any sort of processed cranberry, is a different story. Greens. We need our greens. We need to feed the bacteria that eat the greens so that we have plant digesting bacteria. Not about digesting plant starch, digesting cellulose proper. And especially bitter greens, which, the green apples are almost a bitter green, but bitter greens, like romaine, lettuce, broccoli, anything bitter, Say dandelion greens are a really good choice, especially with how the alcohol produced by candida can affect our livers. And dandelion is very good for cleansing the liver. So greens, bitter greens. Instead of peanuts and cashews, walnuts and almonds. They are not starchy. They are actually mostly fat and protein, and that will help promote good intestinal health much more than eating a peanut or a cashew would, or anything made from peanut, especially processed foods made from peanut and cashew when you're in a yeast overgrowth state. Garlic. Garlic we're going to talk a little bit more about in the next video. It is very anti-candida. It's very good for breaking up the biofilm that candida produces to protect itself. If you need to have a grain, brown rice is usually pretty good. The least processed, the better. Brown rice, as opposed to white rice, has a much longer chain carbohydrate as opposed to a shorter chain, which would be a simple sugar. And simple sugars are bite-sized for candida, while the longer chain carbohydrates, which would be anything really fibrous, are going to feed the bacteria that eat plant matter better. Apple cider vinegar. You want to wait to incorporate apple cider vinegar into your food, but apple cider vinegar is going to give you a lot of benefit in combating the symptoms of yeast die-off. Yeast die-off happens when yeast is starved of sugar and starch, and we end up having little bits of that plant matter from the biofilm in our bloodstream, or the compounds that they produce all being released at once when a large number of candida microorganisms die. That'll bog down the liver. That will give you joint pain, random traveling body aches, fatigue, headaches, irritability. And the irritability and the body aches, the fatigue, can lead people towards comfort foods. And comfort foods throw you right back at the beginning of the cycle, and you end up feeding the candida again and increasing their population threshold again. Now, we'll typically have high sugar cravings when either candida is dying out, so the bacteria are sending up last-ditch effort attempts at getting us to eat sugary and starchy foods, and when it is at the verge of, or just after it's gotten to, a new threshold level of population, when we have a whole bunch of new young candida and they're just, yeah, I'm gonna chirp upwards like a baby bird. Now, this candida, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is supposed to stay at about 5% out of roughly 100 trillion bacteria in the average tract. When it overgrows, and especially once it's crowded out other bacteria and truly taken over the small intestine, and especially for people, say, with Crohn's, so they have a large population of candida living in the small intestine where it can easily communicate up, we're going to have lots and lots and lots of cravings for foods that promote the growth of these bacteria. And when we have lots and lots and lots of these bacteria all living in one spot, imagine like a small animal's brain talking, whispering into your ear, saying you need that Snickers bar. If we don't go to Dunkin' Donuts, our whole day is going to be horrible. And you don't know that it's bacteria talking to you unless you're researching these things and unless you're finding out how the microbiome communicates with our brain. And it's just imagine having a small cat's brain whispering to you, telling you cravings that you think are yours and you think are natural and you justify and rationalize for the sake of comfort, while all of the different candida-based ailments continue to get worse in your body. It's not impossible. I've done this. I have lost a bunch of weight. I fixed my skin, fixed my digestion. I have balanced my mental and emotional state around my food. I even have improved mental function because of a healthier liver from less alcohol being produced in my intestinal tract, and more of the bacteria that produce the neurotransmitters that my brain needs, as well as the B vitamins necessary to synthesize them up from the base materials that they start off as, like 5-HTP becomes serotonin after it's tryptophan, and then it's melatonin after it's serotonin, or dopamine starts off in our gut as DLPA, and trust me, it's hard at first, but it's worth it. Pretty much every aspect of your health can be improved with a steady candida cleanse, even an occasional candida cleanse. And it gets easier, much easier, as you start to crave the foods that feed the bacteria that you're promoting, and as you start to get an emotional attachment to feeling good that is much stronger than any previous emotional attachments you might have had to how good you felt temporarily with a particular food on your taste buds or in your stomach. Thank you. I hope you found this informative. I hope you make good use of this information. And please, like, share, comment, and if the mood so strikes, there are links down below for donations. And happy eating, and I wish you the best of luck. It gets easier.